Hello again, everybody. It's Mike Petralia, Trags. It's episode 238 of Patriots Beat on the CLNS Media Network. Follow us at our just relaunched website, www.clnsmedia.com. Also follow us on two places on Twitter, at CLNS Media, and for Patriots and NFL-centric news, at Patriots CLNS. You can also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/CLNS Media. My pleasure to welcome to the program somebody I go way back with. As a matter of fact, to the beginning of my days here in New England, covering the Patriots and everything sports. The co-host with me of Smorgassports on WKOX back in the day, Jon Meterparel. How the hell are you?
Mike, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for the outstanding introduction, and I will never forget those days. That's like, asking me if I remember my first date. Of course I remember the days of Smorgassports. I mean, are you kidding me? You were instrumental in the success of that show.
It made me feel at home, and God bless your late father. He was Steve Meterparel. He was somebody who always believed in me, and I got to tell you, he will always have a very, very fond spot in my heart.
Well, you're very nice to say that, Mike. Yeah, my dad was a huge fan of yours. We knew right when we met you, I believe, the first day we met you, we said, we got to use this guy, and that was all. My dad was a huge believer in what you were doing. He loved the fact that you worked your butt off, and you were at every event, and we always could rely upon you. So you built a terrific career, and thank you for saying that.
Anytime, Meter. I'm going to get on to the business right now, John, of the NFL draft is coming up. And, of course, everybody is looking forward to April 26th to the 28th in Dallas, Texas. And regionally and locally, people around here are wondering what the Patriots are going to do. And I think there are three players that you're intimately familiar with, having done their play-by-play at Boston College. Three players that certainly I think could fit in to the Patriots scheme, maybe certainly early on in the draft, but perhaps later on down the road. Obviously, we're talking about the defensive end, Harold Landry, guy that's played linebacker / defensive end, the classic 3-4 hybrid, right?
Oh, yeah, Harold Landry is a phenomenal fit for many teams. It's funny. If we were talking now, rewind the tape, and this time last year, when Harold Landry was deciding about whether he would go into the draft, we all would have said, Harold Landry, if he goes this year, he's a top 10 pick. And now we're sitting at a point now where Harold Landry might not be a top 25 pick. And it's unfortunate for him because he had an injury-wrecked senior campaign. When he played, he was productive, but he just couldn't get on the field as much as he could have.
How bad was
the NFL?
How bad were his ankles? I'm sorry, John, but how bad were his ankles?
They were bad. I mean, I think they definitely were bad. I think it's also came to a point, though, where Harold Landry said, I really don't want to mess with my future pro career, and I might want to say, hey, I'm going to relax a little bit and let's rehab and let's see where it takes me instead of risking further injury. So it was bad enough that he couldn't get on the field for many weeks. And I know the coaching staff, they kept pushing and pushing, but it comes down to the kid. I mean, I can't blame the kid. I really can't. I mean, he's got a lot of money on the table. He came back. Good for him for coming back. He's getting his degree, and that's a huge thing, especially getting a BC degree. So, I can't say enough about him as a person. I think he's a character kid. I think he'll work his butt off. I think he'll do whatever it takes to fit into a system. And he's an explosive pass rusher. And if you look at the Patriots, Mike, what do they need?
Yep.
They need athletes. They need pass rushers.
That's exactly right. And obviously, they just signed Adrian Claiborne, a free agent from the Falcons, and that's going to give them, a veteran defensive end type of situational pass rusher. But I think, when you're looking at a defensive end like Harold Landry, you're talking about more, I think, a 2 or 3 down type of player, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think he's great against the run. And he'll tell you that. I think that's probably where they're going to find some chinks in the armor for him. I think it's probably going to be where, Harold Landry is not a great edge guy. He's just simply an upfield guy. I've read that as we move close to the draft. He's as he says, he's very pliable. He can bend. He can, he can jump over a building if he has to. He can jump over a 320-pound offensive lineman. He's not going to be your classic defensive end that can stuff the run. That's just not him. But I think the Patriots, if they draft him, any team that drafts him, you're going to get a 2-down, 3-down player, and you got to hope that he can provide an immediate impact. I see him as that type of player.
So, I mean, I started off rambling here saying that there are three players that could help the Patriots potentially from Boston College: Kamrin Moore and Isaac Yiadom. Two corners that certainly, the Patriots would appear to be in the market for a cornerback, even though they did get Jason McCourty. I think, when you talk about what Kamrin Moore and Isaac Yiadom can bring to any NFL team. Yiadom really did well in the Senior Bowl. Reading Daniel Jeremiah, a guy that stuck out at the North practice back in, I believe it was January, when they had the Senior Bowl, and Daniel Jeremiah said that Yiadom had excellent positioning downfield. In watching him, what stuck out to you, John?
What stuck out to me about Yiadom was the fact he got better every year. I mean, he came into BC, he was green as could be. They weren't sure he was going to be a corner. Maybe you'd have to move him to safety. Even some thoughts maybe of going over on the offensive side of the ball because he was such a good athlete, playing at Worcester's Darty High School, had a terrific career there. But I give BC's coaching staff a lot of credit for what they've done with Yiadom, headlined by Jim Reed as the defensive coordinator, Anthony Campanelli, their defensive backs coach. They made this kid, or with Yiadom's work, of course, they really made him into a top-tier ACC defensive back. And he would go one-on-one. He'd shut down the opposition's best receiver. Week in and week out, we saw him hold guys to 3, 2, 1 catch. He was that type of player, and he got faster. He got stronger. I think Daniel Jeremiah made that point in his recap of the Senior Bowl. He's got to turn heads because he'll flash every single down. I mean, this is a kid that can play 4 downs. He can play special teams. He can do a lot of things on the field, and I think he's a perfect Patriot because he is so versatile. Bill Belichick loves versatility, and why not take a shot in the 3rd or 4th round on Isaac Yiadom?
Well, and someone else that knows Bill Belichick and knows Boston College pretty well, I think you know where I'm going with this, Mike Mayock, watched film of that Senior Bowl, and he said, and he didn't hold anything back, full disclosure, proud to report that BCCB Isaac Yiadom had an outstanding day. So certainly Yiadom's stock has risen quite a bit, but I want to move on from Yiadom and talk about the other corner who had a very productive final year at Boston College, Kamrin Moore. He was somebody that really stuck out every time you watched BC, especially in the second half of the year when they were making their run for the bowl game to eventually lose to Iowa in the Pinstripe Bowl. But Kamrin Moore, I thought, was really a playmaker.
He is a playmaker. I mean, he was hindered because he got hurt too. You'll think back to what he was coming into the year. A lot of people thought he could be first or second team All ACC. Got hurt. That was an issue for him as well. Great ball skills, outstanding work in the air, and backpedal, very fluid in his motions. Another kid that got better. Outstanding personality. He's a team leader. He always has a good thing to say about everybody. He's always upbeat. I love dealing with him. I think coaching staffs would love dealing with him as well. All 3 players he talked about thus far, they want to learn. They're eager to learn, they're industrious. They're extremely, extremely smart too. And I think that's so valuable. Kind of an underrated aspect of the draft. You want a kid that's going to be able to come in and learn right away. I mean, some of these systems are complex. I'm sure Matt Patricia is running a complex system in Detroit. Kamrin Moore, to me, I look at that type of team and say, you know what, that's a great fit. I think Kamrin Moore is a great fit for anybody. It's just a matter, is he healed? I think he is. I think he's getting to a point now where he's just about 100%, so that will help his cause. But more like Yiadom, I see as a guy that can be a plug-and-play from day one because he can do a lot of different things.
Of those 3, though, who has the highest ceiling?
Well, I think there's no doubt that Landry does. Landry, I think, could be a 10-plus sack guy every year. So explosive, Mike, just a burst. I mean, you and I have seen a lot of good BC pass rushers. I know you go back to the days of Mike Mamula, and they've had some terrific defensive players. But when Harold Landry was at optimum efficiency at 100%, he was the best guy I saw rushing the passer in my time at BC.
Let's move on to some of these other programs that you covered, Meter, and have covered for a long, long time. That, Bill Belichick was spotted looking at Bradley Chubb of North Carolina State and their defensive line on Monday. He made the pro day visit down to Raleigh, North Carolina, and was looking at North Carolina State. What stuck out to you about Bradley Chubb and North Carolina State, and what kind of impact could those guys make at the NFL level?
Well, Chubb, like Landry, is just his explosiveness, just his athleticism. I think he's probably might be a little better athlete than Harold Landry. He kind of fits the mold a little bit more than Landry. He's a little bigger. He's a little more rugged. That's the thing about the NC State defense line. Those guys were just packing a wallop on every single down. It was like running into a wall. BC had trouble with that. They lost 21-14 this year. That was a crusher for them. They really felt they could win that game. They lost at home. So that's something that, BC looks back on and said they missed an opportunity. But a large part of that was the front seven of NC State. So I don't blame Belichick for going to Raleigh and tapping into Dave Dorn and saying, hey, what do you have for me? Chubb's going to be a top 5, top 10 guy. The Patriots going to have to move up if they really want him. I think in terms of their defensive linemen, they have some tremendous defensive linemen as well. Just run stuffers, though. They're not very dynamic. They're run stuffers. They're kind of in the mold of a Vince Wilfork, maybe not as athletic as Vince, but those are guys. I think around the ACC this year, we saw a lot of defensive players. Clemson's got everybody coming back next year. We all thought they would go pro. They're all coming back. If they didn't come back, those guys would be first and second rounders, no doubters. Christian Wilkins, Trevor Lawrence, or Dexter Lawrence, you name it, they got it at Clemson. But around the ACC, we saw ultra run stoppers, and it was hard to run against any defense because teams are getting more stout up front.
Speaking with Boston College football and basketball play-by-play man Jon Meterparel. Hey, listen up, guys. 66% of men lose their hair by the age of 35. Hard to believe. Thing is, when you start to notice hair loss, can be too late. It's easier to keep the hair you have than replace the hair you've lost. Is that hairline slowly starting to move backwards? Any bald spots yet? How will you feel a year from now if it's business as usual up there? I ask you right now, right here, right now, do you want a bald spot to pop up, or do you want to do something about it first? Here's a solution. Go to 4hims.com. What is 4hims.com? Simply said, it's a one-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, sexual wellness for men. Thanks to science, baldness can be optional. Hims connects you with real doctors and medical-grade solutions to treat hair loss. Order now. My listeners get a trial month of Hims for just $5 today, right now while supplies last. See website for the full details. This would cost hundreds if you were to go to the doctor or a pharmacy, but I'm telling you right now, go to hims.com. Do your homework. Go to hims.com/trags. That's FORHIMS.com/trags for hims.com/trags. Speaking again with Jon Meterparel, the outstanding play-by-play man for Boston College football and basketball. Hey, Meter, what do you do in the spring?
This spring, I am going to be busy, Mike. I'm on the arena football beat for
really?
CBS Sports Network. Yes, and I had my first year doing it last year, play-by-play for TV. And I'm also going to be doing games for Nesson for the new Worcester franchise, the Massachusetts Pirates. They'll be playing their games at the DCU Center. And I think I don't know if you've ever been to a game, but it is outstanding action. They had me at hello. It was a phenomenal game to call. 50 yards of pure excitement and outstanding hitting, pulsating action. Players are fast. Players are ferocious. They're playing for the love of the game. And arena football is a great option for you. If you're a football junkie like yourself, you have got to get down to the ECU Center this year or any place. Albany has a new franchise now in the AFL One League, which will be on CBS Sports Network. But so I highly recommend arena football.
So you will be working for CBS Sports Network in the spring. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I want people who want to know how they can get more Jon Meterparel, tune into CBS Sports Network this spring. But I am far from done with you, Meter. I want to ask you about the quarterback that you saw. The one game of mine to me, Meter, that I listened to all of your road games, taking Janie and Emma to soccer practice and swim practice and all of that. But the one game that stuck out to me that was most entertaining, you know which one I'm going to say, right, this year?
This year, oh boy, we had a few this year. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
Lamar Jackson at Louisville. I thought it was the most entertaining game that I heard on the radio all season long. You were outstanding, and I want to know from you how good of a player in person is Lamar Jackson.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm glad I won precedence over Disney Radio, but I think Lamar Jackson is simply spectacular, Mike. I mean, he has the fastest feet I've ever seen. Pete Cronin and Scott Muchin, who's our sideline reporter, was commenting on how fast he is, how balletic, a word that we love to use, balletic. That's a great way to describe him. In the open field, it's like he's wearing skates, and everybody's just slipping and sliding on the ice. It's amazing. He can stop on a dime. I think his arm is underrated. I think in the right system, we hear that a lot, but in the right system, he will be a terrific player. It's just a matter of, will you have patience? Are teams going to take a flyer? Is he a first rounder? I would venture to say he is, just because quarterbacks are so valued now. He's got to be in the top. I put him in that Baker Mayfield class. I put him in the Josh Rosen, maybe not, because he's not your prototype drop back pro quarterback. But he's that step below that. And if you want a dynamic athlete, he's your guy.
Okay, two things I hear when I hear Lamar Jackson and talking to scouts and other, people who watch a lot of college football who would know. Two things that would stick out with Lamar Jackson that he would definitely have to address at the next level. Foot mechanics as he prepares to throw the ball, getting his foundation settled. That's point number one.
Yep.
And point number two, his vision in the red zone, his ability to execute in the red zone. Those two areas were not strong for him. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Of course, against BC, he was a one-man show this year, and he was last year for that matter. He's done that so many times. The guy is a vapor trail. Good luck catching him in the open field. Yes, he needs work on his progressions. Yes, he needs work on his footwork. There's a lot of things. He's unrefined. He's definitely unrefined as a passer. I'll totally give you that. But, again, if you want a guy to make plays and maybe use him as a specialty-type player right off the bat, not a 3-down quarterback, and maybe just spot him at times if you can afford to do that, he's your guy. I mean, I love him. I think he's outstanding. I think he's I think he's underrated.
Okay, so you hear the comparison, obviously, to Michael Vick, but there's another comp that I think would be much more suitable for him progressing at the NFL level, and that would be Deshaun Watson. And I'm just curious, you obviously have seen a lot of Deshaun Watson in his days at Clemson and the times he played against Boston College. BC's defense actually gave him a run for his money the year that they won the national championship 2 years ago. I want to get your sense of whether or not Lamar Jackson has a lot of the similar qualities that Deshaun Watson does now with the Texans.
Well, I would define them both as winners, and no one's a better winner than Deshaun Watson, as he proved that at Clemson, one of the top quarterbacks ever in their history, if not probably the number one quarterback in Clemson history and one of the top quarterbacks in the ACC. So they both can win. We know that, okay? But I think Deshaun Watson had a distinct edge in his ability to throw the ball. Even though that was, again, a little underrated when he came out of Clemson, I think he was a little bit more refined in mechanics than Lamar Jackson is coming out of college. I think Lamar Jackson has a real strong arm. He whips it in there. He has that throwing motion. It's almost like it's so loose, it's ridiculous. But he can throw the ball 60 yards. And Deshaun Watson had the little more drop back style that you saw this year with Houston, which Billy O'Brien utilized. So I think Deshaun Watson gets it. Coming out of school, I'd give him a B+ from a passing perspective. Coming out of school for Louisville, I'd give Lamar Jackson a C+, B- in terms of passing.
Why is Steve Adazio the right man for Boston College?
I think Steve Adazio, the best thing that he's done at BC, and I think he's done a lot of good things, but you know what he's done? He's brought the culture back to BC. He's built the program to what Tom O'Brien had it. The program that O'Brien had, and you watched a lot of those games covering it in your many years in Boston.
Right.
Tom O'Brien was a bastion of consistency, and he won 75 games, and he lost 45. And that you knew what you were going to get. You knew you were going to get a 7, 8, 9-win year, make a run at a top-tier bowl game. A lot of times they lost games they shouldn't have lost. We know that. But he really brought BC back to what it should be. And that's basically what the expectations should be for a BC team. I think, look, we all have expectations. We all have high expectations. Are they going to be a top 10 team? Probably not. But you know what? They could be a top 25 team every year. And I think Steve Adazio, and right now, are they there yet? Not quite. But I think this year they'll make a definite run at the ACC Atlantic title. Clemson's going to be tough, we all know. But they're going to be right there in the mix because they got a lot coming back. Adazio's done a really good job recruiting. He's brought energy to the program. He's brought a vision to the program. He's brought a stability on the strength side, which is another underrated aspect of any college football team, strength and conditioning. Justin Fry leaving will hurt. He went to UCLA as the offensive line coach. They bring a new offensive line coach in. They bring a new defensive line coach in. There's always some flux, and there's some moving parts. But I really like what Adazio has done from a standpoint, Mike, of stabilizing things.
Well, and, it's appropriate we're talking this week, Meter, because Pro Day at Boston College is on Wednesday. And I'm just curious to get your feel for when you go to the Pro Day, do you get that sense in talking to others, NFL scouts or NFL people or other reporters there covering it, that the BC program is headed in the right direction? Because I am of the belief it is.
Oh, I think it definitely is. There's no doubt about it. I mean, a couple of years ago, everybody was very down, and they should have been because they lost some really bad games. And it looked like the program was headed for some dark days. I mean, you could talk to anyone around the program when they went winless in the ACC. They lost games they never should have lost. You could go back to the Duke game. There's all the woulda, coulda, shouldas in that year were brutal. But he turned it around, and that's what he did so well. And the kids never lost faith. You lost every quarterback that year. You were down to your walk-on from Wellesley, John Fadul. But they played hard. They almost beat Notre Dame. I know you were there at Fenway when they almost beat Notre Dame.
Yep.
A good Notre Dame team with Deshaun Kaiser. And John Fadul was playing quarterback along with Jeff Smith, who's now a receiver. I mean, those type of games were kind of launching point type games because they saw they had it in him at least. And then he goes out and gets one of the top running backs in the country last year that no one recruited outside of Michigan, who probably wanted him to play linebacker, and A.J. Dillon. And we all saw what Dillon did last year. I think he's going to be a Heisman contender this year, and he will be for as long as he's at BC. So you're talking about arguably the best running back BC's ever had in A.J. Dillon. So when you have that type of building block and everybody coming back, they're definitely headed in the right direction.
I am somebody who believes that Steve Adazio brings energy. Is it hyperbole sometimes? Does he go over the top? Yes, but you know what? He knows that that's part of the sale of Boston College, that he is going to go over the top in convincing people he is there to stay. And I got to tell you, it takes some guts to do that, especially when he knew when there was a new athletic director coming in that all eyes would be on him, that his job was essentially on the line. And for that team to start off, I believe they were 2-5, right, Meter? What were they this year?
Well, they won 5 out of the last 7 games. Yes.
Yeah.
So they finished. You know, you're looking at a 7-6 year, which clearly again, I hate to play this game, but you're talking a quarter away from being 9-4.
Oh, there's no right. And I just think that when you see the scrutiny Boston College comes under, they welcome the scrutiny because that means they're relevant, right, Meter? I mean, that's the whole thing, and that's Adazio's game. Is he knows that he has got to pump he's got to pump up the volume at Boston College for people to pay attention to him. Okay, enough about Steve Adazio. I want to get on to your man crush with Matt Ryan and whether or not you think Matt Ryan is eventually going to win a Super Bowl and why.
Yeah. Oh boy, the $1 million question.
Yep.
I think he will. I think Matt Ryan will win a Super Bowl. I think Matt Ryan will always have his critics. Matt Ryan will always have people say he throws too many key interceptions. Matt Ryan will always have people say he's too slow. Matt Ryan will always have people say he's not fiery enough. But you know what? If you give Matt Ryan the talent like we saw 2 years ago, awful coaching, terrible coaching by Shanahan in the Super Bowl. I think Dan Quinn also melted down as well. That was absolutely the worst. And I give them a lot of the Patriots should give them rings for what went on in that second half of them melting down. But Matt Ryan, if you give him that type of talent, he already has it with Julio Jones, and there's a lot of weapons there, and he'll tell you that they're pretty well stocked. Why wouldn't he win a Super Bowl? I mean, his defense, yeah, a lot of that's about your defense. Are they going to be good enough? I mean, he can only do so much. But I think Matt Ryan, you got to be patient. He's a $150 million quarterback. He's got to renegotiate soon. If Kirk Cousins is worth 3 years and $84 million guaranteed, Ryan's worth double that, isn't he?
I would think so, considering what he should have accomplished back in 2016. Look, you know Matt Ryan, and part of what I'm getting to here in asking that question, Meter, is the personality that Matt Ryan has to deal with what he went through in Super Bowl 51. There are quarterbacks who, and teams for that matter, who would go through an emotionally gut-wrenching loss, a transformative loss that could just absolutely send you down the spiral. And you tell me why, what is it in Matt Ryan's makeup that keeps that from happening?
Because he's extremely mentally tough. And that all goes back to his upbringing. It all goes back to a kid who never once had someone say to him, hey, Matt, you're the chosen one. You're our guy. You know, you are going to be the guy we build a program around. And I think even though it was, maybe that happened when he was drafted in the first round and he was a top 10 pick. And I think the Falcons told him that. But until he got to that point, that didn't happen at BC. It didn't happen back in Exton, Pennsylvania, growing up outside Philadelphia, when everyone thought he could maybe be an option quarterback, and he was running the option in high school. And Tom O'Brien recruited him maybe, hey, you might be a second or third stringer. We'll see where it goes. And every time he's had that chip on his shoulder, Mike, he's knocked it off. And that's a huge boulder, Super Bowl 51. But he has the mental capacity to get through it. And I think it starts with his upbringing. It really does. It starts with his dad, who's an outstanding guy. He was one of the nicest parents I've ever met at BC. And, forget about that. What they made him, you could tell that Matt Ryan was going to be a hell of a man and a great father and a great husband and just kind of a pillar of the community. And that's one of the main reasons why Arthur Blank drafted him. Forget about football. He saw what the type of man Matt Ryan is. And I think you talk to anybody, you dealt with him in the media, always has a good thing, always has a smile on his face, easy to deal with. Yeah, he's not the best interview in the world, but who cares? I mean, I think that's by design. He doesn't want to let too many people in. But I can't say anything bad about Matt Ryan. It's well documented. I admit I have a man crush on him. We all have our man crushes. Yep. He's mine.
Hey, do you stay in touch with him? Do you have the opportunity?
I do sometimes. I mean, once in a while, I'll send him a text to congratulate him on a big achievement or a big game, or like everything else, everything gets lost. I think he's kind of busy and trying to figure out what's going on in Atlanta. But he's the type of guy when he comes back to BC, and he did last year when his jersey went up. He took 5-10 pictures with my kids. It was like I saw him, yesterday when it was been 5 years since I last saw him. So he's that type of guy. Both him and Kuechly, when they came back last year, it was like, a brother's coming back. They're that type of guy.
Well, I mean, and I obviously, being from Cincinnati, have a very soft spot for Luke Kuechly. I remember writing this at the time, Meter, that I thought Luke Kuechly would have been the perfect Patriot linebacker for
Oh God, yeah.
all of the things he could have done. And I wrote that when Luke Kuechly was a sophomore at BC, and you could tell the way he read and reacted as an inside linebacker. He was going to be something special. It's remarkable to me, Meter, how much talent has come through Boston College. And I just don't think people appreciate sometimes the level of talent that has been produced, NFL talent, great NFL talent that has been produced at Boston College.
They don't. That's a great point, Mike. I'm glad you brought it up because think about how many players they've produced. Think about the offensive linemen. Think about on the defensive side. You can go back to the 70s if you want. And Pete Cronin, who I work with every Saturday, is one of those guys. Those are the type of guys that BC started with that brought BC back to football prominence. I mean, 60s and 70s, they just kind of were starting to emerge. Then, of course, they went through the 0-11 campaign. Fred Smerlas, one of the, borderline NFL Hall of Famer, he was part of that 0-11 team, as was Mike Mayock. So every year, Mike, it seems like they have 3 or 4 guys like they do this year that are going to be good pros. And they might not be first rounders, but these are guys you want on your team. And especially on the offensive line. I mean, the other thing about Adazio, I mean, he's made a living as a really good offensive line coach, and he takes pride in that. And he'll tell you, the Pounceys in Florida, he brings them up a lot. And those are the type of guys he looks for. He looks for the road graders, the maulers, and what NFL coach wouldn't want to have one of those type of guys?
Okay, I'm going to wrap this up by asking you your favorite Boston College football memory, play by play, and your favorite basketball one, because we really didn't even talk about how much basketball you've done and how the BC hoops program is starting to turn it around. But I want to get your favorite highlight, football and basketball.
Boy, that's a loaded question. I think the football side, you got to go back to Matt Ryan's senior year and a rainy night in Blacksburg, Virginia, when BC was just emerging as a top 5 team. And yes, that's right. They were ranked number 2 after beating Virginia Tech, a favored Virginia Tech team that night, 14-10, thanks to Matt Ryan's final 5-minute drive, which for 55 minutes, BC was brutal and Virginia Tech was brutal on offense. No one could score. It was a sled pull. It was horrible conditions. We didn't even think they might not even play the game because it was raining sideways, but there's that mental toughness again from Matt Ryan. He pulled it out with a pass to Andre Callender in the corner of the end zone. It was actually right below us at Virginia Tech, and, that was just a tremendous moment. I could tell you, I've had a lot this year. A.J. Dillon's breakout in Louisville, his run to the races in the shadows of Churchill Downs and 270 yards, that was phenomenal. I mean, the fact that he basically threw down a defensive back like he was a 50-pound flea was an unbelievable run. Also, from a basketball perspective, I think you got to go this year and Duke, beating number 1 Duke at County Forum. Talk about unexpected. That was unexpected. No one thought coming in BC had a chance. We all thought Duke was a borderline pro team with Marvin Bagley and Grayson Allen and Wendell Carter and Trayvon Duvall and Gary Trent and BC. Throughout that game, Mike, they beat them soundly. And Mike Krzyzewski did not adjust. He was flummoxed by Kai Bowman and Jerome Robinson. BC had every opportunity to lose the game, but they didn't. They held on. And that, to me, is a testament to what Jim Christian's doing now. They're starting to build a culture. It's going to be a slow process because it's so hard in the ACC to win consistently in basketball. You know that. Al Skinner did a great job, but the ACC was down then. It's certainly on an upward plane now. And BC winning 19 games this year was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and if they hadn't lost 2 games late in the season in which they led, I am of the belief I think they might have made the NCAA tournament. It would have been, they certainly would have been right there on the bubble. But it's been great, Meter, catching up like this. We got to do this more often and have you back on this Patriots Beat podcast on CLNS Media. It's been a blast. I want you to tell people how they can follow you on social media now.
Well, you can follow me on social media at Meets Tweets, and that's MEATS tweets. So I always got roundly criticized for that Twitter handle when I was at WEEI by Jerry Callahan and company. But we went with it, Mike, and we're sticking with it. It Meets Tweets. And, I look forward to joining you anytime. Thank you, and best of luck on this endeavor. You're doing great work, as always.
I appreciate that, Meter. And one more plug for your CBS Sports Network work this spring.
Yes, I look forward to that with Arena Football, and also check out Nesson's coverage of the Mass Pirates from the DCU Center. That's going to be a lot of fun, too. And you never know, Mike, what's going to come down the pike. We're always looking here, and it's always fun to catch up with old friends like yourself. And it's nice to hear that people still remember us, Mike.
Yes, and we need to keep our names out in the forefront, and this show will help us do that, no doubt about it. Get daily team updates on the Patriots Newsfeed podcast. It is available on the CLNS Media New England Patriots postgame show feed. It's available on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and the CLNS Media mobile app. Thanks again for downloading today's Patriots Beat. Want to once again thank our great guest, Jon Meterparel, the play-by-play voice of Boston College football and basketball. You can follow him on Twitter at MeetsTweets. That's MEATSTWEETS. You can also give us a follow at two locations, at Patriots CLNS and at CLNS Media. Of course, give my own personal account a follow at Trags, TRAGS. Today's sponsor, Hims.com. For Patriots content manager Mike Alonji, CLNS Media, executive producer Larry H. Russell, the founder of the network, Nick Gelso. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. This is Mike Petralia, and this is the Patriots Beat podcast, powered by CLNS Media.
What's going on, Past Nation? This is Marvin Zahn of the CLNS Media Network, and I'm here to tell you right now to check out the CLNS Media New England Patriots postgame show hosted by myself and my co-host, Mr. Mike Nice. And live on CLNS Radio immediately after every single Pats game. Call in at 929-477-2386 toll free to get your voice heard and contribute to the host breakdown and analysis of the latest Patriots contest. We also got the stars and sorries of the day, Twitter posts for the plays of the game, and everything else that is going on with the 5-time Super Bowl champions. Subscribe to CLNS Media New England Patriots postgame show on iTunes and Stitcher, and the best way, download the free CLNS Media Network mobile app for on-demand listening anytime, any place, anywhere.